A very warm welcome to all of you. My name is Robert Gerwart. I work in the School of History and I'm a professor of modern history here in UCD, but also director of the UCD Center for War Studies and indeed program director of the MA in International War Studies. So I will try to cover a few things in this webinar. I will try to cover the MA in International War Studies and its content. Then I will move on and talk briefly about the MA in European Studies, and last but not least, the MA in Global Studies or Global History. So these are three distinct programs. Two of them, the International War Studies MA and the European History MA, are two-year programs, whereas the Global History MA is a one-year program. So I think that the MA in International War Studies is ideally suited for people who are particularly interested in the history of conflict and conflict resolution, particularly in the 20th century, but we also go into the early modern periods. So if you are interested in early modern history or indeed 18th or 19th century history, there will be modules that cover that as well. But in the main, our students who come from either a history or political science or international relations background tend to be interested in the long 20th century all the way to the present. If you are enrolled on the program, then you'd be spending your first year in Germany, Potsdam, a city just outside of the German capital, Berlin. Some of our students live in Berlin, others in Potsdam. That's highly individual and depends on your preferences. And then the following September, you would come to UCD to finish your degree here, which also entails a dissertation, a 15,000-word dissertation, which you submit in the summer of your second year. Some of our students choose to do internships, and particularly our colleagues in Potsdam are very happy to assist with that. I should say that even though it's a bilateral program with Germany being involved, it's a program taught through English. So all of the courses that you will take either in Potsdam or here in Dublin will be taught through English as the common language. It's a competitive program, there's no doubt about that. We get far more applications than we have places, but generally speaking, we have about, in each cohort, about 20 students per year. Some very common questions revolve around fees, because there are no student fees in Germany. You basically pay the fees for the 1 year in UCD, and that's usually split into two payments, one at the beginning of the first year and one at the beginning of the second year. As I said, lots of people choose to do internships in the middle before they come to UCD, and that very much depends on what you're interested in career-wise. We have students applying for this program from all walks of life, all sorts of backgrounds, predominantly people who have, either a history degree or a politics degree or international relations degree, but we do accept people from other disciplines as well. And what happens when you enroll, you in Potsdam at least, you have two core courses, one per semester, and apart from that, you basically can put together your own program depending on your own preferences. And the same applies to UCD, where most students then complete 3 modules, 2 in the first semester and 1 in the second, before they focus entirely on their dissertation. You would be given a supervisor, assigned a supervisor who works roughly in the same field as you, but it's very much driven by your own research interests, and so we will try to accommodate you as much as we can. People who've done the program have then entered into all sorts of professions, from the usual civil service careers. We've got people in the diplomatic service. We have people who come from military backgrounds and continue to work with the military, but also lots of NGOs, journalists, people who work in museums. So there's quite a variety. And while there is an opportunity to take German classes while you're in Germany and kind of immerse yourself in that culture, which I guess is an added benefit to the program, There's no obligation to do so if you choose not to. Um, Moving on, and I'm sure those of you who are interested in this particular program will have questions about it, but I'm very conscious that some of you might be interested in the MA in European history or indeed the MA in global history. So I'll say a few words about that. So the MA in European history is another 2-year program, but roughly with the same conditions in the sense that you only pay fees for 1 year. What makes this MA in European history quite unique is that you have the opportunity to study in different partner universities that we have on this particular program, which would be 10 universities in 8 different European capitals, from Dublin to London, Paris to Madrid, Tallinn, and Rome. And here you can take either, you can decide to spend 1 semester in one or a year in another, or indeed you can visit up to 3 universities over the course of this 2-year program. So that's quite a unique offering, and this might be for you if you say, well, the history of armed conflict and conflict resolution is not my primary interest. I'm really interested in European history, which to us, of course, includes Irish history. Again, you have a lot of choice that you can pick different modules in each institution. In some countries, the number of modules taught through English might be more limited than in other cases. So, for example, if you decide to go to the Netherlands, you will find lots of universities that offer courses through English, perhaps less in Madrid. But if you have Spanish already, then this might be a wonderful opportunity to build on that knowledge and to advance your language skills. Last but not least is our MA in Global History, which in terms of non-Irish history, a specialization is our one-year program. So you would be spending the entire year in UCD. And this is really for people who want to look beyond Europe, or rather look at sort of European, including Irish, entanglements with the world, again, spanning the 19th and the entire 20th century in terms of its chronological focus and scope. Here too, we have historians graduating from this program and moving into all sorts of careers. We're actually very happy in terms of employability. For all 3 programs, I think we've built a very strong reputation in terms of the brand being recognized, not just nationally, but internationally, and our students really going into extremely interesting careers throughout. Again, the School of History is very happy also for the other programs to facilitate internships in case that you're unsure what your future career is going to be. And to give you an opportunity basically to explore what career you want to embark on upon graduation. And in all of these cases, the dissertation is a very central part. It's student-led, so you would approach us and say, well, this is an area of history that I'm particularly interested in. We try to pair you up with one of our staff members who works in a related area. Doesn't matter which century, although most of the students here would probably either be focused on the early modern period or indeed the very modern period. And then we try to assist you as best as we can in terms of setting you up with archives where you can explore the subject of your choice in great depth. So those are the kind of cornerstones of all of these programs, and obviously I'm very happy to answer more specific questions. But perhaps before we do that, I might hand over to Maggie, maybe just to add a few words on in terms of her own experience.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. My name's Maggie. I am in the History of Welfare and Medicine program here. I was just going to talk about a few things. I think one of the first things you'll really realize once you get started here is that the master's experience is really a lot of independence. You have a lot of opportunity to really shape what you get out of it. They really do want you to do something you're interested in with your dissertation, and I found that the academic support, everyone is really wants you to do what you want to do, which I think is a really great part of this experience. I'm not going to get too much into the academic programs because I'm in a bit of a different sort of taking different courses, a different setup. But for me, I found since I don't have as much class time, I'm really able to build my own schedule. So I think really finding your own study spots on campus, and campus is a bit intimidating, at least it was for me, coming from a bit of a smaller undergraduate university. The campus is really large. One of my biggest tips is definitely do a dry run of your classes. A lot of the buildings, especially the Newman building, which is where a lot of the history courses are, is very confusing and you will get lost. But don't worry, there are lines on the floor trying to direct you in the correct direction. But I would still give it a couple times, just try to figure out where you're going before your first day. All of the academic buildings also have coffee shops in them, which I really appreciate as someone a bit addicted to coffee, but they're also great study spots. The library can get really busy, especially the third floor, which is the most beautiful one. Um, and another aspect, I live on campus, which I have found to be very helpful. If you want to live on campus, I would recommend apply as early as you can because it fills up very quickly. If you're familiar with Dublin, you know the bus system can be a bit challenging at times. So also build in some time into your schedule to making it to campus if you aren't living super close by. Finally, just on social life, I think that was one of the elements I was most nervous about coming here to Dublin. I'm from the United States. I don't know anyone over here when I first arrived, but I found it was actually pretty easy to meet people. During Freshers Week, there is a lot of societies, they're all set up, and they're only €2 to join. So I would really recommend joining as many as possible, meet different people. I also went to a few speed friending events. I was a little nervous to go to these because I assumed we would mostly be undergraduates, but I actually mostly met master's students who I think were similarly looking for other people to meet. And none of them are in my program. And I think that's also been a great experience meeting master's students from all over campus, doing all sorts of different things. It's been really fun. Um, yeah, and you can meet a lot of different like-minded people who are interested in similar things that you are, but not necessarily the exact same thing you are. Uh, so overall, I think the word I would use to describe the master's experience is a lot of supported independence. You can really choose what you want to do, but you have a lot of support there to guide you in the right direction. But I'm also very happy to answer any questions about academics, application, social life, housing, or whatever, if anyone has anything like that. But that's all. Thank you.
Mhm. Emma, I can't hear you.
Thanks, Robert. If you have any questions at all, we'd love to hear from you. I've one in here from Chloe Hanrahan. Hello, Chloe. How are you doing? Robert, she's wondering, are there opportunities for language studies in the MA Global History? Particularly interested in Irish and German.
Yeah, we get this request quite frequently. It's sort of so if you're talking about the UCD, so you're talking about global history here in this particular case, we would definitely do our best to facilitate. You know, there are two different models of doing this. One is you can sit on German and Irish classes as an auditor, which means you don't get a classification at the end of it. Or if you want a classification, then it would be a four-credit module. But we're trying to accommodate that as much as possible. So there is quite a large language offering. So we do the usual kind of main European languages, but also we're currently in conversation with UCD Global about adding to the offering in terms of non-European languages like Arabic or Chinese.
Okay, that's great. And at what stage do students apply for languages? Is it when they've arrived in UCD or do they need to state that on their application?
No, if you accept the place and let us know, we would actually love that because then it's much easier for us to kind of accommodate you. So once you've accepted your place and you let us know that you really want to, study German or Irish, then we will start working on that to make it happen for you.
That's great. Thank you, Robert. And still with Chloe, Chloe's wondering what the American history faculty is like in UCD.
Well, we're fortunate enough to have American historians within the School of History, but we also have the Clinton Institute for American Studies, which is kind of an amalgamation of different disciplines interested in American history and culture, which includes literature, politics, and indeed history. So there is quite a diverse offering in terms of US history, US culture, US literature on campus, and also lots of events around that.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Robert. Maria Schild is asking about the lecture halls and class sizes. Are the lecture halls very big? She's wondering. She's used to small classroom sizes and wondering what the variety is like.
Well, our classes do vary in size, but we kept them at a maximum of 20 at MA level. So in some cases, you will have much smaller classes than 20. In others, there will be up to 20. So that would be the kind of cutoff point. I don't know if Maggie has any kind of practical advice on that, but I'm sure you'll be able to say a little bit more about the different class sizes that you are experiencing at the moment.
Yeah, most of my classes are around, I would say like 14, 15 people. We're not all in like the big lecture halls either. It's like smaller classrooms. Yeah, they're not too large.
And can you tell us a little bit about the application process from your point of view, Maggie? When did you start? Have you any advice to students on the call?
Yeah, I applied, now I'm thinking, I think in winter, like around January time, I think is when I finished and submitted my application. I would say really a lot of it is just drafting. Get as many opinions as possible as you can on your application. I'm usually a little nervous to let people look at my things, but once the first few people start looking at your application materials, it gets easier. Let everyone look. Don't overthink it too much though. Make sure to give your professors, whoever asking for recommendations, plenty of time, especially around this time when they're getting pretty busy. Give a couple weeks notice, and then just keep emailing them saying, "Oh, sorry, the deadline's coming up." But really, I think applying as soon as you can, just making sure for your own state of mind too that you have your plans all set. That would be my advice at least.
Yeah, and I think a general trend that we're seeing is that it very much depends on where you're based in terms of when you apply. So usually our very numerous applicants from North America would apply in the autumn in the lead up to Christmas, quite simply because they have to move continents and therefore probably want to plan ahead. Whereas students who come from all over continental Europe tend to apply in the spring, also because they're academic year is slightly out of sync and it starts later and ends later. So that's kind of the general pattern that we see. But with all our courses, as I said, 20 is probably the maximum capacity for any course that we would accept. After that, it becomes difficult, and then the classes become too big. So when I say that we have up to 20 people in one class, that happens quite rarely. Usually people have different preferences, different choices, and there's a great deal of flexibility in terms of which modules you choose.
Lucy is wondering for the MA in European History and that application process, do students apply to UCD and another university, or do they apply just directly to UCD? How does that roll?
No, students would apply directly to UCD, and once you have been offered and have accepted a place, you would then be in touch with the program coordinator, which in this case is my colleague William Mulligan, who would then start the process, depending on your preferences of where you want to go and when you want to go, to sort out your study abroad period. So that's how it usually works. But you can make a state of preference if you like in your application letter.
So specifically, Lucy is interested in her topic comparing Irish and Spanish history and is considering, for example, maybe applying to the University of Madrid. Would that be a good approach to take?
Yeah, I mean, obviously for the dissertation, I think that would be a wonderful choice because you're right there where the Spanish National Archives are. So you could use that both for, language immersion, taking classes at the University of Madrid as part of the program, but also take advantage of the fact that you're there and then work in specific archives. And of course, your dissertation advisor would be very happy to help you to sort that out and establish contacts with those archives.
That's great. We have one history and politics graduate from 1983 on the call. You're very welcome, James. Lovely to see you here. And he's wondering, are there any other MA history students of a similar vintage?
Oh yeah, we have all sorts of ages actually. I mean, obviously, I would say 70% or 75% come out of university and then continue their journey in the MA. But at the same time, we have loads actually of slightly more mature students, particularly for the war studies program actually, because some of the students would have done military service, including we had one Turkish general among our students in the past, and also some mid-career diplomats who decided to take some time out and spend it on the 2-year program, including one deputy Irish ambassador to former to Moscow, which was really interesting just in terms of his own experiences in the past. So there is a happy mix. So if you decide to embark on this journey, you won't feel too isolated, I think.
That's great to hear. Makes for interesting classroom discussions, I'm sure, when there's a variety of age groups present. Chloe's interested in finding about the potential to extend beyond the MA to a PhD. That's a well-trodden path, as they say.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I mean, lots of people use the MA to kind of try out if this is really for them in terms, you write probably the longest piece you have written up to that point, which is about 15,000 words. So it's a nice way of trying whether this is really for you, because the PhD ultimately is a pretty long journey. It's a 100,000 words. So, you can try it out and test it. There's absolutely no rule against then continuing on your MA dissertation topic. You can keep working on that if you find that this is something that you're really enthusiastic about. And it does happen quite frequently in lots of the MA programs, actually, that we then see a continuation into the PhD program. But it's probably, I normally advise everyone who asks me, should I go straight into the PhD? Against that, because I think, first of all, you need some methodological tools, but you also need to kind of gain the confidence to work on a PhD thesis. And I think it's a good way actually to ease into it by doing an MA, by taking some of the courses, and by trying it out, writing the MA dissertation, and see how you like it.
Okay, we're going to take a couple of final questions and we're going to have to wrap it up after that. And thank you all for all of these questions. It's wonderful. We've a question here from Maria about the kind of careers that MA students of war studies have gone on to pursue.
Very diverse career paths, I should say. I mean, we have people who I said, could either continue in their military careers or civil service careers. Upon graduation, we have people who go into conflict resolution, work for NGOs, work in Brussels. We have people who go into journalism, or also kind of continue on their academic journey and then do PhDs in war studies broadly defined, be it political science or history. So there is a pretty broad spectrum of jobs. To the best of my knowledge, we haven't lost anyone. So I think most of all of the people who graduated kind of continued on in very interesting careers. But it's a very wide spectrum. So it really depends. In the past, we've had kind of people who come with a background in international humanitarian law, for example, who then kind of continue to work in that field. We had military practitioners who rejoined the Navy or rejoined the military or went into research. We had diplomats who kind of took a career break or subsequently went into the diplomatic service in terms of with a particular interest in conflict resolution and so on and so forth. So it's broad spectrum. I think one of the foreign policy advisors of the German now German Chancellor is a recent graduate of ours. So people kind of move into different career fields, and obviously it helps if you avail of the opportunity of doing an internship, because that really kind of helps to focus the mind on what it is and where you want to go in the future.
That's great. Thank you very much. There's a couple more questions coming in. We'll take them and answer them in the follow-up if that's okay, because unfortunately now we need to move on to our next call. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining us on this call, to Maggie Murray, to Robert Gerworth, and to all of you who've joined us from Ireland, from far afield, and of course to Edward Burke as well. So thanks everybody. Please do keep in touch. Save down all the details in the chat and drop us a line via email or through our course catalogue, and we look forward to seeing you at UCD in the future.